All right, well, there has been quite a lot of mixed reaction to the new cabinet size in particular, with some calling it rather bloated. Let's get some more views now with Professor Susan Booysen, who's a political analyst from Wits University. Prof Booysen, always great having you with us. Good afternoon. So I'm sure you've had sufficient time now to look at the new appointees. Any surprises for you? Any hits or misses? And what do you think about the new size of this cabinet?
Well, hi, Alicia. Certainly it looks rather bloated, oversized. Takes South Africa, it actually keeps South Africa right at the forefront of big cabinets around the world, especially when it gets relative to population size. And it's become so much part of our political landscape in South Africa since that is a period, for example, this has been the rough size of the cabinet, and yet Ramaphosa had promised that he would be reducing it, but now was this big opportunity when it came to having to accommodate not just a large range of political parties and keep getting their leaders high-level co-opted into cabinet, but also keeping so many of the ANC's own factions, constituencies, keeping them comfortable. So it is really a political instrument.
And Prof, surprising enough is that not just Cyril Ramaphosa, they are promising to shrink the size of that cabinet. Even the DA during its many campaigns, right, was saying that should they go to parliament, they were going to, of course, shrink the size of that cabinet. But let's look at some of the key areas of functionality for the country to progress, particularly where it's been stagnant, like your land reform, as well as development and treasury, which is the national purse. And of course, transport issues like your Transnet have to be efficiently addressed. And of course, the ports, which have been a disaster. Now, expectation is quite huge for these appointees to hit the ground running. But the question is, of course, when it comes to the agreements on policy level, due to those very different ideologies, what do you think is going to happen in this regard?
When it comes to policy, it's essential for political parties in this cabinet really to come together, and we look forward to the Cabinet Lekgotla to help achieve that and reach consensus on their policies going forward. Because it's a compromise that is required in coalition government, the parties have to accept that it's not their original policies that are going to go to voters, but it's going to be a negotiated, shared, compromise position that suits everybody in the room. And that is, I think, one of the big misunderstandings that we see in general reactions to a coalition and what are these people from these parties, whether it's DA or PAC or Patriotic Alliance, what are they doing in particular portfolios? But it's not their political convictions, their party manifestos that will get into that. It will be negotiated cabinet positions. Of course, in big bloated cabinets like this, it is very difficult to effect proper coordination. And I really think this will place huge demands for assertive leadership from the front on President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Prof, just on that point of compromised shared position stance, I mean, will this not then affect the way, as well as timeous manner, that the new cabinet or the various portfolios and department actually takes in coming to a conclusion or a solution based around the various issues and challenges facing those many portfolios?
Alicia, you're exactly right. It could very well. And one can only hope there's a sufficient sense of extreme urgency on the shoulders and the minds of this set of cabinet members, because they truly do not have much time to get things right.
Now, Prof, what is your assessment then of some of the key appointments that the ANC actually maintained, or just, for lack of a better term, kept to themselves, like, of course, your DIRCO as well as the justice portfolios, for example. And in that instance, it's either they kept the same minister or basically just brought in new deputies, but generally the makeup is solely ANC.
Yes, that seems to have been the trick of this cabinet reshuffle here, to split ministries and keep the old ANC people roughly in place, and yet create the impression, and in a small way do it, of creating space and openings in influential, potentially powerful portfolios for opposition members. So, but in crucial portfolios, we have really seen little sideways moves of big ANC loyalists, people whom Cyril Ramaphosa cannot dare to remove from his cabinet, people on whom he relies to keep on retaining stability on at that front. We see some of those and others, rather bizarre ones. I would call Angie Motshekga in defense one of those. It was basic education was a ministry that was really not one of the spectacular ones, performers on the books. And I just hope she doesn't have to deploy too many troops to the right places for South Africa. But that is the light moment there. But on several other places, there were a sufficient number of promotions of relatively junior people previously in the cabinet who have been pushed up. And I think Ramaphosa also does that very strategically to try to make his own people and younger people in his
All right. Unfortunately, it looks like I've lost that interesting conversation there with Professor Susan Booysen. And of course, we're going to try and see if we can still get hold of her. She is, of course, a political analyst, and she is from Wits University.